Richard was born May 23, 1950, and died December 26, 1980. He grew up in Sacramento, California, with his two parents and younger sister, Pamela. His childhood home was in Santa Clara County, in a neighborhood that was very lively and very welcoming. His mother's name was Beatrice Lauren Niece Chase. Growing up, Richard was used to his parents arguing, fighting, and having various cheating allegations, plus being physically abused by both his parents, but mainly his father. Unfortunately, during this time of Sacramento, California, his father's actions were out of the ordinary for families.
From a relatively normal family. I think there was quite a bit of controlling behaviour, especially on the part of his father. So he was very strict, he was quite a disciplinarian. And I think he put across some very fixed ideas about masculinity in the household. But that's not dissimilar to thousands of households across America.
He was just a normal kid. He was in Boy Scouts, he was in Little League. He had friends, and everyone describes it as in many respects, a pretty normal life.
But the young Chase started showing sinister traits.
When Chase is 10 years old, his mother discovers that he's buried the body of a cat in one of her flower beds. Now, there were several cats that had gone missing from the neighborhood. This is inherently disturbing behavior, and his mother doesn't do anything about it. She doesn't try and get help for him. And I think this was very much part of the culture at the time. This is a really odd thing that doesn't make sense, so we're going to sweep it under the carpet and just hope it goes away.
At the young age of 5, Richard was developing signs of all three parts of the McDonald triad, which is a theory suggesting the development of violent psychopathy. The triad linked Chase to cruelty of animals, obsession with arson, and persistent wetting of the bed at the age of 5 and up, to violent behavior, specifically homicidal behavior and sexually predatory behavior. During his time in high school, he was actually a pretty popular kid despite his internal issues. He went to school like any other kid would, with over 60 kids going to his birthday parties. He even had a girlfriend. This all went downhill when he discovered that he was impotent. Being impotent means unable to achieve or maintain a penile erection. This prevented him from having any sexual relationships with women. He was even counseled by a psychiatrist about his erectile dysfunction and was suggested that he suffered from it due to psychological problems stemming from regressed anger and mental illness, but received no further counseling after. In 1968, he enrolled in American River College, where he received grades of C's and below, while consistently using drugs like marijuana and LSD, causing him to eventually drop out of college in 1971. Chase then moved into an apartment building with Sid Evan DeMarchi and Rachel Statham, who found him sitting on their front lawn. They soon realized that he had a drug problem, with him usually being high and naked around the building, even with visitors. He also decided to barricade himself in his room so that no one would be able to sneak up on him. They eventually moved out because of his strange behavior. He ended up losing the apartment because he was unable to pay rent by himself. In June of 1972, his parents separated and he had to stay with his mother. While living with her, he was convinced that she was trying to poison him. It is also said that he developed hypochondria from his drug and alcohol abuse, causing him to tell doctors that his pulmonary artery had been stolen, his heart would stop beating, and claimed that his blood was turning to powder.
Main treatments are psychotherapy. The most common treatment for health anxiety is psychotherapy, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. CBT can be very effective in treating health anxiety because it teaches you skills that can help you manage your disorder. You can participate in CBT individually or in a group. Medication. Some people don't respond to psychotherapy, however. That's why the doctor may recommend some medications. Antidepressants, such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, are frequently used for this condition.
He has been admitted to the doctors several times, including being committed as a schizophrenic suffering from somatic delusions and making himself believe that he was reincarnated as one of the younger brothers, aka bank robbers, associated with Jesse James. There was also a time where he injected rabbit blood into his arm and complained about blood poisoning, but soon escaped from the hospital after the doctors denied his release and was considered a threat to others. He has also been admitted into a psychiatric ward and was released with paranoid schizophrenia. Chase would still murder small animals in his adult years, creating soda concoctions with their organs. He then moved on to larger animals and was even caught by the police smothered in cow blood in late summer of 1977 near the Lake Tahoe area. This was when he finally got pushed over to the edge.
First, the mysterious drive-by shooting of 51-year-old Ambrose Griffin.
We assumed that it was just a thrill killing. Somebody wanted to shoot a person in their own front yard.
His first victim was 51-year-old Ambrose Griffin, who he shot dead in a drive-by shooting right in the chest in December 1977. This is how I imagine the drive-by shooting. 2 weeks after Griffin, Chase attempted entering the house of a woman near his home, but because her doors were locked, he left it alone. His code was that if he were trying to enter a house, if it was locked, he felt like he was not invited. One time, he was chased out of a home after urinating and defecating on their infant child's clothing and bed.
Then the shocking murder of 3 months pregnant Teresa Wallin.
The victim had been opened up with a knife. You'd almost want to say butchered.
I found a used yogurt cup and apparently had been drinking the blood.
As fear spread in the community, a large task force was mobilized in a race to apprehend the unknown killer before he struck again.
The second documented murder was on January 23, 1978, for the shooting of Teresa Wallin, who was 3 months pregnant at the time. Chase broke into her house and shot her hand, then shot her in the cheek, which broke her jaw, before shooting her in the head. He had sexual intercourse with her corpse while stabbing her over and over in the stomach with a butcher knife found in her kitchen. He removed several organs, including her spleen, cut off her nipples, and proceeded to drink her blood through a yogurt cup found in the trash. Before leaving the crime scene, he stuffed dog feces from Wallen's yard down her throat, leaving a gorisome sight to behold. The remnants of her unborn fetus was found, and it was determined that Wallen was still alive during some of the mutilation. Chase made no effort hiding the crime scene despite him wearing gloves during the act. Her husband found her dead with her eyes open and her tongue sticking out with a terrified expression that was haunting to Detective Wayne Irie, who was over this case.
Then, on the 27th of January 1978, Homicide Chief Ray Biondi received the call that 3 more bodies had been found.
When I went into this house on Marywood, it was obvious that this was something very similar to what happened on Teresa Wallin, murder on Tioga Way. In the front room was Daniel Meredith. He had been shot in the head, and he obviously had been executed where he was probably standing. As I went into a back bedroom, there was Evelyn Maroth. She had been killed and mutilated. Her abdominal cavity had been opened. And at first I didn't notice, but then I did notice on the other side of the bed was her young 5-year-old son, who was also had been shot in the head. There was a bathtub full of bloody water, and we had this whole house of carnage, actually, and 22 casings. We were very confident we were dealing with the same killer.
His third documented murder was called the Muroff's family massacre, with him killing 38-year-old Evelyn Muroth, Muroth's friend Dan Meredith, 6-year-old son Jason, and her 22-month-old nephew David Ferreira. He shot all of them fatally in the head. Evelyn's death was quite similar to Wallen's, cutting out her organs, stabbing her in the anus, and attempted to cut out one of her eyes. Semen was found in Muroth's mutilated anus, suspecting that Chase was able to have an erection despite his impotence. He stabbed 22-month-old David in the back of his skull, making it easier to drink his blood. While this crime was occurring, it was reported that someone knocked on the door, causing Chase to flee from the scene with the baby's corpse. He then decapitated the baby's head and consumed parts of his brain when he made it home. When asked why he did it, he said that he was just hungry. Chase was captured after his last murder in 1978 when Muroth's house was alerted by a neighbor. The police detained Chase from his home after creating a profile of his appearance, white male in his 20s, and was suffering from mental illness due to how much evidence was left behind in each crime scene. He wore the same orange coat that his dad recently bought him for the last 2 murders he committed. The police searched his apartment, finding most of his home, plus his eating and drinking utensils soaked in blood. They even found a calendar that had both dates for Wallen's and Muroth's murders marked with the word today, and he had that marked on 44 more dates throughout 1978. Chase was uncooperative with the police, claiming to have only killed some dogs and that the Italians framed him. A few days later, he was interviewed by psychiatrists who asked what was on the screen of his mind. He answered, normal things, and an exploding 747 jetliner. In 1979, Chase stood trial on 6 counts of murder. While in custody, he firmly believed that the food being served to him was poisonous and ordered his defense attorney to get the food tested. The test came out negative. His defense attorney tried to lean his case to finding him guilty of second-degree murder with a life sentence instead of the death penalty. This case depended on Chase's history of mental illness and deciding whether or not his crimes were premeditated. In interviews, he stated, "I didn't kill anybody, just a few people," and told psychiatrists that he was sick and poisoned by iodine or mercury and started killing to help him. He believed that his lack of blood prevented him from having a normal life. He pled not guilty for reason of insanity and told the jury that he was a good person, just had a weak mind and heart. On May 8th, he was found guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder and was rejected of the idea that he was not guilty by reason of insanity. He was sentenced to death in the gas chamber. While in San Quentin prison, his fellow inmates, aware of how violent and gruesome Chase's crimes were, often tried to convince him to commit suicide. At 11:05 a.m. on December 26, 1980, Chase was then found dead in his prison cell at San Quentin. It was revealed that he died from overdose, specifically with Sinequan, which was a drug prescribed to treat depression and hallucinations. Chase took 36 times their normal dosage, secretly hoarding pills in his cell. 2 notes next to him stated that he took some pills to stop his heart from beating. His death has been questioned whether it was an actual suicide attempt or accidental, and just simply trying to silence the voices in his head. When I was researching about Richard Chase, I was deeply inspired by Dexter. Chase was named the Vampire of Sacramento because of his fascination and obsession with blood and the metallic taste of it. Because of his hypochondria, he felt like what he did was justified due to his fragile condition that wasn't actually real. People love serial killers because they choose to romanticize their ways no matter how gruesome they are. America was built upon serial killers, from slave owners to billionaires who control our country. Curiosity is also built into our nature as humans, while having the thrill to solve a mystery and the psychological curiosity about the dark side of human nature.